Reuben, please, that isn't your toy gun, but your dad's. Put it down, Mum said with popped eyes. Reuben turned and looked at his mom, and then he pointed the gun at her. The game is over, dear mother, Reuben said as tears welled up in his eyes. No, no, Reuben, drop the gun. Reuben had an enemy, even as little as he was. His mum was the enemy he was going to get killed by his own hands. His daddy had forgotten his gun in the car one day when he picked Reuben up from school to get his usual roast plantain and groundnut across the express road. Reuben glanced at the gun and then at his daddy across the express road. Daddy would never allow him to touch his gun and would always keep it away from Reuben each time they were together. But on this day, Reuben picked it up when his daddy wouldn't return from where he went to get his usual snack after like 5 minutes. It was quite heavy, unlike Reuben's toy gun. He knew what a real gun was capable of doing even at the age of 9. And in JSS 1, he used to see it in movies whenever he visited Lunray, his neighbor, because Lonray's older siblings loved war films. So Reuben wanted to try his daddy's gun on his mom. Daddy had pulled over that day and told Reuben to give him a few minutes so he could get roast plantain and ground nuts from Iyawande, his regular customer across the express road. He never missed having the combo before lunch every day. As soon as Iyawande sighted him from afar, she would start grinning, revealing her dentition and chanting his name with her hands in the air. One would think maybe Daddy was the one responsible for her breakfast, lunch and dinner, if it was your first time hearing her chants. Mr. Kohler Collington, my special person, she would always say. Reuben loved the way she would always hail his daddy, and hearing that alone brought a smile to his face as he would always sit in the car, waiting for his daddy, and, at the same time, anticipating her regular chants. But on this day, Reuben wasn't in the mood for all that paparazzi. He pointed the gun before him with a finger on the trigger. Don't be scared. I wasn't going to pull it just yet. I was saving my own bullet for my mother. Wondering what she did? I'll tell you, Reuben thought. After Dad dropped me off before our gate one day, he told me he wasn't going to come in because he had an assignment at the office, being a police officer, so he drove off almost immediately. I opened the gate after I bade him goodbye and went straight to our flat, but Mom wouldn't open the door after banging several times on it. I knew she was in because I couldn't find the keys under the footmat, but I sat on the pavement, wondering why she wouldn't open the door. I would stand and peep through the living room windows countless times, but would find no one, as her windows remained shut and with curtains down. I knocked several times on the glass windows too, but there was no response, so I went back to the pavement to sit for a few minutes. Is everything okay with her? I asked myself. And then different thoughts came running through my mind. Mom never used to keep friends, and that day wasn't even a market day, but I knew she was inside the house. I stood up in an attempt to go and knock on Auntie Alaba, our neighbor's door, when I started to hear Mum's laughter. I was startled, and then turned and went back to peep through the living room window when the living room door opened all of a sudden, and Mom came out in the company of a very dark, pot-bellied middle-aged man, both laughing so aloud. Reuben, when did you get back? She quizzed as soon as she sighted me. I screened the man from head to toe. I had never met him before. Is he your son? He queried in a local accent, smiling from ear to ear. Yes, oh, he's my only child, she said, smiling so sheepishly, and then turned to me. Reuben, say hello to Uncle, she added. My uncle? Your brother or Dad's? I asked in a low tone. "He's my friend. His name is Uncle Opalua," she said, still smiling from ear to ear. He quickly dipped his hand in his pocket and brought out very lean notes and stretched forth his arm. "My boy, take 4 sweets," he said with a grin. As little as I was, I knew something wasn't right. I also knew that Mom was up to something, but I couldn't really figure out what it was. I ignored them and walked out on them into my room. And after a few minutes, Mom came to me after she had seen him off. "How dare you treat my guest like that?" she ranted. "Who really is he? Does Dad know about him?" I quizzed with folded arms. "He's my guest, not his. And hey, not even a word about him to your father," she warned, pulling her earlobe. "Why?" I asked. "No why, but it's a warning," she said, and then left for her room. Daddy returned from work that day. We were all in the dining room having dinner. "Daddy, Uncle," I said. But Mum looked up swiftly, giving me an ugly stare. I quickly swallowed whatever it was I had to say and then continued eating. "Reuben, what were you going to say?" Dad asked, staring at me. But I shook my head. Another day they forgot to lock the living room door and I arrived home with Dad. Mum noticed on time and she made the man hide in my bathroom. I was so pressed, so I had to go ease myself, but as soon as I opened the door, he jerked, startling me. "Please, don't shout. I will buy you a bicycle. Your daddy must not know I'm here," he begged. But I ignored him, peed, and then left the bathroom. Mum later smuggled him out when Dad went into his room. And from that day, I knew Mum was hiding something from Dad and me. Daddy had finished buying his bowl and was waiting for the road to be free before crossing over. Reuben quickly opened his school bag and put the gun in it, saying silent prayers for his dad not to notice and not follow him into the house, and for the man to be at home with Mum again that day. "Oshodi! Oshodi! Oshodi!" a bus conductor yelled before Reuben's dad, but he shook his head and then finally crossed over and handed Reuben a bowl with a wrap of groundnuts. "Reuben, you're moody today. What's wrong?" Daddy asked. "Nothing," Reuben said, taking a bite of the hot bowl. "Okay," Daddy said, shrugging his shoulder, and then he started the car. Reuben's prayers were answered because Daddy left as soon as he dropped him off without noticing his gun. Reuben went toward the entrance door and tried opening the door, but it was locked, and he couldn't find the keys. He started banging on it. Mum opened after a few minutes, adjusting her wrapper, and Reuben immediately knew that the man was around. He ignored her and went inside without saying a word. "Reuben! Reuben!" she called, hurrying after him as if she had read his mind. Reuben threw open her door, and there the man was, lying stark naked in Mum's bed. He grabbed the bedspread as soon as he saw Reuben and struggled to cover his nakedness with it. But Reuben immediately unzipped his bag, brought out the gun, and then flung his bag aside. The man immediately threw his hands in the air. "Reuben, please, that isn't your toy gun, but your dad's." "Put it down," Mum said with popped eyes. Reuben turned and looked at his mom, and then he pointed the gun at her. "The game is over, dear mother," Reuben said as tears welled up in his eyes. "No, no, Reuben, drop the gun," she yelled, but the only thing playing in Reuben's head was how to fire. And then he heard the living room door open all of a sudden. "Reuben! Reuben!" Daddy came in, screaming Reuben's name. "Where is he?" "Oh, I'm finished," he added. Reuben ignored his father and had his eyes fixed only on his mom with the gun in his hands, still pointing at her. She stood there, already shivering with her hands above her head. Reuben noticed the pot-bellied man picking up his trousers swiftly from the floor. But before Reuben turned to him again to find out what exactly he was up to, his dad came in, and then Reuben pointed the gun back at his mom. "Where's Reuben?" Daddy quizzed in a distressed tone, and then paused as soon as he saw the scenario. "Jesus Christ!" he exclaimed, staring at Reuben. He looked around and then looked at Mom. "What the hell is happening here?" he questioned. Reuben still stood there, staring at his mom with his hands stretched forth. "Ask your wife." Reuben let out slowly, and then pointed the gun back at the pot-bellied man. "Reuben, give me that gun," Dad said, but Reuben ignored him. "Give the gun to your father, you naughty boy," the pot-bellied man barked at Reuben. Reuben was going to release the gun to his dad, but what an effrontery from the man. A finger was already on the trigger. Reuben pulled it, but the pot-bellied man quickly swayed a white handkerchief as soon as he did, and then the bullet returned to Dad and met his forehead. He fell directly on his back in the pool of his blood. Reuben threw the gun aside, ran to him, and carried his head in his arms as his blood kept dripping from his head down Reuben's arms and then to the floor. "Daddy! Daddy!" Reuben called at the top of his voice, but the once agile dad of his laid there breathless like a log of wood. Reuben looked up and saw the man already rushing and dressing up. Reuben didn't even know whether to scream or pick up the gun a second time. "Woman, I am out of here. Are you coming with me, or you'll stay here and go to jail?" he quizzed, staring at Mom, already set to run out any moment. Mom hurried toward her wardrobe and dragged out a boo-boo dress. "I'm coming with you. Please, I don't want to go to jail," she said, struggling to put on her dress and hurrying after the pot-bellied man, who was already on his way out. Reuben sat there, confused and helpless. His mum left him all alone and ran away with her lover. He looked at his dad again and tried forcing his eyelids open. But there was nothing Reuben could do. "I should have told you about Mom and the pot-bellied man. Dad, I'm sorry," Reuben said in between sobs. "Run," a voice whispered in his head. Reuben gently dropped his dad's head on the floor, and then he rushed into his bathroom to wash off the bloodstains off his body. He took off his stained uniform too, and then dumped it in the bathroom. He opened his wardrobe, picked up a pair of trousers and a shirt, and he was wearing it on his way out when he suddenly heard bangs on the door. He froze immediately. "Who is it?" Reuben managed to ask. "Reuben, it's me, Auntie Alaba," the voice said. Reuben rushed to the door and then threw it open, and he went outside. "I'm just returning from the market, and Daisy's mum, who has a grocery store across, was telling me that she heard a gunshot from this compound, and that she saw your mum and one man like that who parked his car outside the gate driving out." "No, I heard nothing," Reuben said, waving his hands, and was already rushing out. "Reuben, are you okay?" Auntie Alaba quizzed, staring at him as he rushed out of the compound. I'm fine, Ma," Reuben yelled back, opened the gate, and then slammed it after him. Reuben didn't even know where he was going, but in most of the movies he had watched as a kid, whoever was caught shooting a gun was always killed or put in prison. He didn't want that to happen to him, so he needed to escape before anyone would notice what had happened. He jogged to the other street, to another street, and another street. It went on and on until he could no longer find his way home. Reuben later found his way into a very popular market the following day after sleeping in a dilapidated store. He was tired and so famished, so he sat before a store that sold grains to see if manna would fall from heaven, because he was already shivering due to lack of food. "Hey, thief! Or you get up from there and get lost before I descend on you," a very fat woman said, peeping through the window of the store. "I'm not a thief, Ma, I'm just hungry," Reuben said, holding his tummy as tears welled up in his eyes. "You're hungry. Does this place look like a restaurant? Will you leave there before I bring a horsewhip?" she raged. Reuben jumped up and then left there in a hurry and kept roaming and roaming the market until it was dark again. And that was how he had nothing to eat for 2 complete days. On the 3rd day, Reuben made up his mind that whatever would be, would be. He saw little boys carrying loads on their heads and backs and getting paid in return, and then he decided to try it just to get food with the money. The first time he tried it, he almost collapsed halfway, and the owner of the load refused to pay him even a penny. Reuben went to a restaurant and ordered white rice and stew, dodo, fried plantain, fried fish, and beef. He had nothing in his pocket, but whatever would be, would be. He grabbed the plate of food from the cellar when she was going to drop it on the table before him and started to devour it. She paused and then stood before him with her mouth agape, clapped her hands 3 times. "But what concerned a hungry boy with such a show?" she said, shaking her head, and then left. A customer stood up after paying the food seller, and Reuben saw his wallet dropped out of his pocket. Reuben didn't call his attention to it. He picked it up as soon as the customer left, opened it, and there were a bunch of 1,000 naira notes. Reuben dragged out a note and paid the food seller for his food. He held the wallet and was grinning at the same time when the owner walked in. He started looking around, and as soon as Reuben noticed that, he was going to sneak the wallet into his back pocket when the owner yelled, "Hey you! Bring that wallet!" Reuben turned and looked around, but there was only one exit door. The owner hurried to him and then grabbed his ear. "Thiefo! Thiefo!" he screamed, calling for people's attention. "Sir, please! I found the wallet on the floor. I swear I didn't steal it," Reuben begged as tears welled up his eyes. "Everybody come on!" he screamed again, looking outside at the top of his voice. Then the woman who owned the restaurant rushed in on them. "Ogre, what is it? What's going on?" she quizzed, with her hands stretched forth before her. "Madam, I left here a few minutes ago after eating the food I ordered. I was going to take a taxi home when I noticed that my wallet was nowhere to be found. I hurried back here because this was the last place I came before going to take a taxi, and on reaching here, I saw this little boy trying to sneak the wallet into his back pocket." "Where's the wallet?" the woman questioned, running her eyes through Reuben's body. Reuben stretched it forth and sobbed at the same time. Here. It is, Ma," Reuben said, already in shivers. She grabbed it from him and turned her back immediately, brought out the money in the wallet, and started to count it. The man then held the top of Reuben's trousers in a very tight grip. "You, this small boy. Your mates are already in college and all you do is pick people's pockets, right?" he said, poking Reuben's forehead. Reuben grabbed the tip of his shirt and wiped his tears with it. "Sir, I'm not a thief. I found the wallet on the floor over there," he said, pointing in that direction. The man suddenly smacked the back of Reuben's head. "Will you shut your mouth?" he yelled, slapping Reuben directly across the face. Reuben could see stars before his eyes immediately after receiving the slap. "Yee!" he cried out loudly, with a hand on his face. For a few seconds, everything went dark. The woman turned swiftly, holding the naira notes in one hand and the empty wallet in the other. "Please don't kill anybody in this small restaurant I'm managing. If you want to do anything with him, wait until you're out of this place first," she said, putting the notes back into the wallet in front of them. "Meanwhile, sir, if you're sure this is your wallet, can you tell me how much money was in there?" she asked, raising the wallet. I had 55,000 naira in there. I don't know if he has already taken money out of it, the man replied. And you, how did you get this wallet? And have you already taken any money from it? She queried, staring at Reuben. Mom, help me beg him to please. Forgive me. I didn't steal it. I found it on the floor over there, he repeated, pointing in that direction. I only took 1,000 naira to pay for the food I just ate. Shut up, you're a thief. You took the wallet from my pocket. Look at this liar! The man yelled, raising his hand to slap Reuben again. Hey! Hey! The woman shouted at the man, who immediately dropped his hand. Sir, you're right. There's 54,000 naira in there. Please take your wallet and you can take Reuben out of here too to do whatever you want with him. I don't know him, she said, handing over the wallet. Ah, Mom, please don't let him take me away, Reuben cried out, rubbing his palms together before her, but his plea fell on deaf ears. Move! Move, my friend! The man yelled, giving Reuben 2 slaps on his back and dragging him out by his trousers. You must be dealt with. If we don't do it this way, you will grow up and start terrorizing us here. Reuben pleaded with him several times, but the man didn't listen. At first, Reuben didn't even know where he was being dragged to. Some onlookers paused to watch them, while others followed behind, asking the man what Reuben had done wrong just to see the outcome. God has caught you today. Take him to the T-junction so they can deal with him properly, a man called out loudly from the crowd. At that point, Reuben still didn't know what he had gotten himself into. They finally arrived at the T-junction and the man started to scream again at the top of his voice. Everybody come, thief! Thief! That was when Reuben's eyes opened to what was coming. He had seen it several times in movies despite his age, where thieves got burned alive by putting tires around their necks. He fell to his knees immediately, still pleading with the man, but he ignored the pleas. Before Reuben knew what was happening, people had already gathered, and a tire flew from nowhere, landing around his neck. Bring fuel! Bring that fuel! A middle-aged man with a missing front tooth screamed, looking back like one who already had fuel set aside for such a purpose. A man then rushed into the gathered crowd with a keg of fuel and handed it over to the waiting man. This is how we do it here, so that this market can be free from petty thieves like you. Because if you're not properly dealt with and you grow up in our midst like this, none of us will be safe doing business here later, he said, opening the keg of fuel. Sir, please, Reuben pleaded with a cracked voice in tears, as the weight of the tire was already weighing down his shoulders. Bring the matches fast, fast, the man said, looking back and snapping his fingers. The same man who had brought the keg of fuel rushed back again with a matchbox. He picked a matchstick and tried to light it, but it didn't respond. He then flung it aside and picked another one. In your next world, you will never choose this path again, he said, lighting the other matchstick. After several attempts, it finally responded, and then he threw it at Reuben. However, the match went off before it landed on Reuben's body. Suddenly, 2 armed guys rushed into the crowd, shooting sporadically in the air, and the cheering crowd dispersed like vapor. One of the armed men hurried to Reuben and removed the weighty tire from his neck. Run, father! The other guy yelled, shooting twice into the air again. The one who removed the tire pulled Reuben up and dragged him by the hand to an awaiting car parked near the T-junction. The driver drove off as soon as they entered the car. Reuben hadn't yet recovered from the shock and started to turn left and right to see the faces of the men who had saved him. Relax, little boy. You're in safe hands, said one of the men, sitting beside him and lighting his cigar with a lighter. Who are you? Reuben quizzed in a low tone, staring at the man. "I am Stone. Just call me Stone," he replied, puffing out thick smoke from his mouth and through his nose. He then turned to Reuben. "Care for this?" he questioned with a grin. "No, sir, I'm just a 9-year-old," Reuben said, while hot sweat dripped down his cheeks from his head, despite being in an air-conditioned car. Stone nodded upon hearing that and put his arm around Reuben's shoulders. "You know, when I was your age, one of the men who brought me up taught me how to do this at the age of just 8. He took me with him one evening, when he saw me at a garage sitting very lonely and alone. I had run away from my wicked uncle's house after he took me in when I lost both parents the same day in a ghastly motor accident. And since then, smoking this..." He raised the cigarette before Reuben's eyes. "This has been my hobby. But I used to see it on TV, and even on some stickers that smokers are liable to die young. Don't you think or know so?" Reuben asked, locking stares with Stone. Stone let out a thunderous laughter. "Reuben is so intelligent," he said, laughing hysterically again, and, at the same time, staring at the guy who sat beside Reuben. The one who sat beside Reuben then burst into laughter as soon as Stone looked at him. One could easily tell that Stone was their boss, while the one driving just sat there driving, without uttering a word. After driving for about an hour, they soon arrived at a cottage. The men opened the car door, and Stone ushered Reuben out. He took him into the beautiful living room and asked him to sit on one of the cozy couches. Reuben sat, and Stone walked to the minibar by a corner of the living room, brought out a bottle of soft drink, approached Reuben, and handed the already opened drink over to him. "Take, my little friend. Drink," Stone said, sitting on the couch before Reuben. "But, do you know me from anywhere? Why did you save me?" Reuben asked, still holding on to the soft drink. Stone let out a smile. "You know? I was once in your shoes, and I was also going to be set ablaze one hot afternoon at Alaba after stealing a radio. A man of my kind helped me. I was just 15, quite older than you are. So you're my kind, and we do not allow people like us to go through such. I know you also stole. So we were close by in a bar somewhere around when we heard people talking about a little boy that was going to be burned alive. So we had to come through for you." Hearing that, Reuben dropped the soft drink bottle on a stool before him suddenly. "No, sir, I didn't steal anything. I only found it on the floor in a restaurant where I went to eat. The owner walked into the restaurant all of a sudden and accused me of stealing it," Reuben said. Stone turned and looked at him. "You didn't steal?" he questioned, and Reuben shook his head in disagreement. Stone adjusted himself on the couch, leaning forward. "But don't you have parents?" he quizzed. "No, sir. I caught my mummy in bed with another man, and I shot him with my daddy's gun." Stone's jaw dropped, and his eyes popped open. "You shot a gun?" he queried, and Reuben nodded. "And what about your father? What does he do?" "Where is he?" Stone asked. "The day I shot the man, I still can't fathom exactly what happened. I pulled the trigger, but the bullet returned to my dad and met his forehead. He died on the spot," Reuben explained. "And the other man?" Stone questioned, staring at Reuben. "He left with my mom, alive," Reuben replied. "Wow, that's strange," Stone said. "Well, drink, that's life." He relaxed on his couch. Reuben stayed with Stone and the others for days, months, weeks, and even years. He started to go on different operations with them, drank all sorts of alcoholic beverages, smoked, and even did all kinds of drugs. He became ruthless and could shoot at anything and anyone, earning the name Sparrow. They went to different parties and even clubs. Stone and some of their gang members would dance and even do dirty things with different women, but Reuben had no business with any of them. However, on his 20th birthday, they were all celebrating in one club around Victoria Island. Reuben drank all sorts of alcoholic beverages and became high. In his subconscious state, he met Layla and lay with her in the club restroom, not knowing she was one of Stone's girlfriends. Write continue in the comments section and subscribe to this channel to unlock episode 2. Thank you for watching. We love you.